Real Hustle podcast, hosted by Chris Kiblin. Real hustle, real people, real results.
How are you today?
I am alive.
You're
good,
alive?
doing well.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
So we just had a nice little lunch, and I actually got to learn a lot about you.
We did.
So before we get started, with a lot of my guests, I like to start with a timeline, just so we can kind of work our way up to where you are now.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go back, because we were just talking about this. Talk about a little bit about your childhood and some of the struggles that you had growing up, because I think that really plays in well to who you are as a person today.
Certainly, yeah. So I didn't have the story kind of childhood, by the book. I was adopted at birth, but it was an open adoption. So
what does that mean, though, open adoption?
That means that I knew that I was adopted the whole time.
Okay.
And contact with my biological family was possible. So a lot of them are closed adoptions where you never really find out that unless you do DNA tests and things of that nature. But for me, I knew I was adopted the whole time. I actually had a relationship with my biological family, which was really cool and exciting. I still have great connections with my brothers and have met extended family, and it's been a really good experience despite losing my biological mother to cancer. But growing up, it was kind of strange fitting into that mold, I guess, and trying to fit in with the family that I had that adopted me, knowing that I was adopted. So I don't want to say the black sheep, but definitely like the odd duckling.
Right.
Everyone was very different and good grades, did the right thing, had a really good structure, my cousins and such. And I had a hard time fitting in, and I wanted to. So I think I was really misunderstood, and that kind of chased me into some of the wrong crowds growing up, and dealt with a lot of nastiness in high school and bullies. And I just really had a hard time finding my way until adulthood, I would say.
So then after that, went through high school and struggled with the high school, right?
I did,
and
yeah.
So, talk us a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, so high school for me was challenging. Just a lot, I guess, when you're a teenager too. But girls especially are just really nasty. And I think that in a sense, everyone tells you, oh, they're jealous and it's this and they're intimidated, and maybe that's part of it, but I also think that in high school, they're just trying to fit in as well, too. So even though I was bullied and picked on a lot, I think they had their reasons for that, too. Just like I was misunderstood, maybe they were. So I don't really hold it against them, per se, but I think I was a junior. I dropped out of high school.
Wow.
Because of it, and I wasn't doing well, wasn't getting good grades. I couldn't focus in that kind of environment in public schools in Delaware, where I'm from. I finished school online. I dropped out knowing I wanted to finish.
Okay.
Got really good grades, almost straight A's finishing online, got my diploma. And then I started to go to college for psychology. So I was always very motivated, but it was a really difficult time just in general to try to stay focused, get good grades without that structure and motivation,
So after that, and then you got your diploma and went to college. Then talk to us, because I know you did a lot of different types of sales jobs, and so with insurance and some other stuff. Mm-hmm. So let's transition into after college. And what did you go into after that?
Yeah, so I didn't finish college because it was so expensive too, and I was working full time. I actually started my first job when I was 15, still in high school, at Arby's, actually. So,
I worked at Popeyes. So.
Okay, yeah. So that was my first ever job as a 15-year-old. But right when I was in college, I was working full time and going to school. So I was working for a cell phone company, and that was all sales, 100% commission. From there, I worked for them for 5 years. I did their business team. It was very much a hustle. You know how it is with commission. And it's tough, but pays the bills, right? So I did that. I moved to Florida with that same job, actually, because I was there for so long.
So when was this? When did you
2018,
move to
I moved to Florida.
Okay, gotcha.
Transferred with the company. left that company, worked for a modeling and acting school, also commissions. And then I wanted to pursue acting. So walking away from that 6-figure career to do it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But definitely the biggest payoff.
That's great money. And I know we were talking about it earlier, and it was just like, that's, most people can't leave that type of, or are scared to leave that type of, that income.
Yeah. And like we were talking about, there's can't and there's won't. And I think we put up such a strong barrier and we tell ourselves that we're not capable or it'd be too hard or I could never do this. And you can. I mean, you just have to peel that barrier back and you have to want it more than you want anything else. And it's going to happen for you. You just have to be willing to put the work in. So when someone says that they can't, I look at them, I'm like, you won't, because it's different, 2 different things,
Right, because that's the thing is like we hear this a lot, right? Where wow, I really wish I could do this, or I really wish I could do that. I wish I could be more like you, and it's like the thing is like you can be, right? And I try to do this all the time, right? And we were having the same, even with my wife, right? She's a pro bodybuilder, and everybody comes up to her. I wish I had a body like yours, or I wish I could have, my legs look like yours, or my arms, or whatever. And she's like, you can. You just have to work out. You have to put in the effort, right?
Right.
And no matter what we want to do in life, it's the effort,
right?
And putting in. Are you fully passionate about it? Are you fully into it? Right. Because as an actress, right, you are fully passionate. You found your passion.
I did,
and so like, and that's the thing. So now you're thriving in your passion. And as we were discussing earlier, we only have one life right now, right? That we know about. And so like, take advantage of it. Take advantage of everything you can, because before you know it, and it's over. And, and you don't want to look back at your life and go, I really wish I would have done that.
Exactly.
And that's what I find fascinating when I have guests like you on, is because you went after something that you were passionate about, and now you're thriving in it. And so you get in there, but I want also, so you came here, but you were also, so you worked for the modeling agency, but you're also a singer.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
That was kind of my first love with anything entertainment. I didn't do too much with it. I did a couple recordings and things, but as much as I loved it and I'm passionate about it, I think it's safe to say now that my passion is acting, because, as much as I love singing, when I go on a stage, it's a complete different feeling singing a song to someone than it is acting behind a camera. Theater, nope, count me out. Can't do
Really?
it. Nope, just singing. I am not one to be on stage, which is ironic because I've done some hosting jobs recently, which are kind of, live, but also on camera. So I'm okay with those. But I love singing. I think I'm good at singing, and I definitely will always pursue it. But as far as my number one passion now, I can definitely say that I've found acting. But I still always love singing. That was my first love. That was my stepping stone.
Like, there's a certain genre, or is there some certain, what do you?
I love
you doing rap?
Most music. So I'm really old school. I love Aretha Franklin, Etta James. I'm a huge Beatles fan. I've seen Paul McCartney 4 times in concert.
Oh, wow.
I've seen the Beach Boys, The Who.
You are going old school.
Yeah. So definitely that era, I would say. But I really appreciate new pop music. It has a lot of emotion now, especially these women that just come out with these pop tunes about their ex-boyfriends
and all that kind of stuff.
Their feelings, they're not just singing surface level, they're really digging deep. So that's the kind of music I appreciate.
That's awesome.
And I love to sing it,
So then you got into this, right? So you were doing this, and then about a year and a half later, or about
year and a half ago,
right? You decided to start really following your passion and your dreams, getting into acting. So tell us the mindset of that and how that started working for you.
Yeah, so working at the modeling and acting school, my job was literally to audition kids that were 8 to 19. And every day I was seeing 20 kids, interviewing them, qualifying them, and just hearing them talk about how passionate they are at such a young age. And I can't help but be so jealous almost that I was like, I wish that when I was that age, I had that, because I didn't. I didn't know what my passion was. I didn't really have that direction, which, to be frank, sucked. It really sucked, because if I had that, it'd be different. But it really made me think. And I realized that film is something I've always admired. I've always appreciated it. I didn't think that I was capable of doing it until working there. So I got my life insurance license from there, because I was like, that'll give me flexibility to do stuff on my own time. So grateful for that company, Symmetry. And I worked for them for a few months as I was transitioning. And then I literally left the modeling school, started acting full time, and it went from 0 to 100. And now I have 25 credited productions. Within a certain year, I've become a producer, a host, actress, assistant director, just all these crazy things, CEO now, of 2 incredible companies. And it's been a ride. It's been crazy. Yeah.
So, let's talk about so what was your first real acting, what would you say your first real acting gig was?
Yeah. So I did a couple music videos, I would say. Up north, I did one, and then down here, I did a few. So that's kind of acting, just background work. I did a few short films when I was first getting started, and that's kind of where I started. So that was for the OIF challenge in Orlando. And yeah, I would say that's where I started, just small little roles. Okay. Realized that I loved it, and then I started auditioning for the feature films and have done some cool documentaries and just weird stuff that but you're like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. So it's been fun.
And then you were just telling me about a crazy horror movie you were in.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So this was new for me. It's called Vengeance is her name. It's a horror film by Ryan Swantek. He has done some really great horror films in the past, so he's known for that. And this role her name is Vengeance, and it's a story about her waking up in hell. She doesn't know why she's there, how she got there, and she sees her ex-husband, her best friend. She doesn't know how they're there or who they are really. And it's flashbacks of her life. She went through a lot with her marriage. She ends up, doing some things that I don't want to spoil because it's being released soon, but it's definitely a horror film. I definitely get vengeance. I will say that. And it's going to be really great when it comes out. It's looking good.
When's the release date for that?
It's in post-production now, so we are completely wrapped. Okay. I don't know the exact release date, but we only have a few things left to do for the film before it's officially complete, and then looking at certain platforms for it. So it's exciting.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So let's talk about, because one of the things that what I found interesting is so now you all of a sudden you've become this, you've grown, and now you're okay, now you're running stuff as a CEO of a particular company or a couple companies, right? Yeah.
The umbrella company and the ones under,
so which is the short period of time that you've been in this, but again, the passion is coming out, so people are seeing it. So tell us about that, because I think that's fascinating, of what you're doing, and and what this could possibly mean for your career, because it's huge.
Yeah, this is a really big deal. So I was approached by the founder, who was the CEO, but he was looking to get that spot filled. He wants to be the founder and, board member. We have a whole board of members. We have a COO and everything else. And I wasn't approached to be CEO right off the bat. I was approached for a couple roles in the films for this big franchise that is being built. Because I fit the description based off of some photos and content that I had posted. So we kind of talked for multiple hours, and I guess I said something, right? Right? And Wayne, who is the founder, who I'm super grateful for, he gave me an offer not just for that production, but multiple. I was originally going to help produce, and it kind of turned into something else where I was going to be CEO of Moonless Media, which is just the media film production company. And then it turned into something greater because we were talking and realized that I'd be able to help kind of structure some of the other elements in the business. We have a scuba business, which he's an expert at, motorsports, also he's an expert at. He owned a NASCAR team, things of that sort. Wellness, we have the film. So, I mean, it's a huge umbrella company for so many other ones. And right now the focus is film because fall's coming up. That's when we're going to be filming Heartstopper. After that, we have Devil's Air. So the goal is that all of these films are going to turn into that franchise. So we're not labeling as an independent film. These are going to be features. They're going to be SAG productions, and it's so exciting to be a part of in such a big way, aside from just acting.
So what's SAG Productions? Because I've heard that a lot, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so that's a union SAG. So basically there's non-union and union. So it's just a way actors are getting paid a certain rate. There's different like micro budget, small budget. There's different contracts depending on how much the film's bringing in. So you're basically held to a certain standard under certain guidelines. So it's just the way to do film now in order to be, I don't want to say the only way, but a great way to help with distribution and things like that.
So really getting it out there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, because one of the things that I'm always kind of interested in is, okay, let's say, because you're running all this now. Let's talk about a production. You guys, you have a movie, you want to do it. Walk us through kind of the process of what it's like. Okay, we have a script, we want to produce this movie. What's next? Like, walk us through that process. Okay, so I mean, are you looking for talent? What goes next? You're looking for talent, you're looking for budget, you're looking for space. Like, I mean, it's got to be a lot of different things, but how do you...
So many moving parts.
So that's kind of what it's like, what does those parts look like? Because, like, you know, I mean, there's got to be, it's a lot to put together a movie.
It is a lot to put together a movie, yes. And, you know, I'm learning too as I go, and Wayne as well, and you know, he's a great writer, so that makes it easier for me because he's just like non-stop writing. I mean, he gets one idea and then he has like 4 movies that we could develop, you know. And right now we have, I think, like 20 films with scripts just ready to go. So we're focusing on our, you know, top 3 and then going from there. But it starts with the script, the idea. So that's where Wayne comes in, and we have other writers that we co-write with and things of that nature. We have producers on the project. They kind of help put everything into overdrive. So once you have this idea, that's great, but you need funding, right? So when you're talking about anything over like $1 million budgeted film, it's way different than like $100,000, $50,000 film. It's a massive production, so there's a lot of paperwork for one, especially with SAG. So you start there, talk about your budget. You need to find sponsors, brand integration, product placement, investors. You need to make sure your contracts are right. So if there's a specific actor that like a company wants or something, we would try to secure that actor if they're like a key investor. So there's tons of moving pieces. I mean, it's literally crazy. And it's not until you really get into a position like this where you see all those moving pieces because you think you have an idea.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, wait, there's 10 more things here. And now there's 10 more things here. And, oh, what about this and this? And it can be overwhelming, but it's exciting. And it's really cool to be a part of something on that large of a scale.
So I'll comment on this, but then I want to go back to something you said. So, like, the coolest thing I think is you do all this work, and then at the end, when you're sitting there watching the movie, all that hard work comes together, and you're like, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that's the fun part, right? You know, because you've done everything, you've run around, got all this stuff together, but then you're sitting there in the theater, and you're like, we did that. That's the fun part.
I have had that feeling as a producer and actress, and I can't wait for that feeling as an actress, a CEO of this incredible franchise, because it's going to pay off. Because what we're putting into this is It's everything. It's a passion project now, for everyone involved, and it's going to be so rewarding,
So I wanted to back up a little bit. So because you had talked about an investor, right? Being an investor into it, and then also being in the film for it.
Yeah.
So an investor, does that mean that they're taking money, like they're helping put money into the film as well, and then being a part of the film?
So an investor, occasionally that can be the case, but an investor, if an investor gives you $10,000, right, they want to see profit from that. So they're not just going to give it to you. If they do, great, cool. I will take that. Thank you for your donation. But that's like a donation, right? So an investor wants a profit. So there's usually specific agreements. It depends on the amount, what it is. There's a lot of negotiation back and forth. But once the project sells for distribution and you make that money back, they would get a certain percentage based off of their agreement. Right. So what they put into it plus a certain amount of points after distribution. So that's an investor, but then there's like product placement and things.
Because that's the thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
We had talked about that, right? So if you have a certain, let's say that the beer company or something else, a car company, where they can come in and you're featuring their vehicle or their product.
Yeah.
That could basically sponsor it, right? I guess that's kind of a sponsor type of thing. And that could really help out with your budget.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. When the founder and I, we talk all the time about that because that's a huge win. If you have, and I don't want to give too much away about our films, but if there's, let's say, like, what's a good example? You need, because your writer wrote in the most expensive car in the world in their script, right? And you need that car because it makes the whole film is about that car.
Right.
That car costs you $2 million a week to rent for your film that takes 2 weeks to film. That's not
that's not
money. Easy. That doubles your budget. So if you have someone come in that says, hey, we want our car in your film. If there is this actor in it or whatever it may be, we'll give you that car to use for the film under these circumstances. Okay, we will say a slogan about your car and where you can buy it. We'll write that in. So it's very technical, but some things are very are hidden very well too. Like you're gonna start watching movies and you go home and you're gonna be like, oh, that's a product placement. They put that in here, or they paid money to put that in there, which would be something different too.
Yeah, because like a lot of times you see it now, and I see it seems like more now than ever. You see a lot of companies, like especially big companies, who are in the movie industry. Like they're Pepsi, Coke, whatever it is, soda, beer, cars, all of a sudden it's the same brand of car. Everybody's driving the same brand of car,
right?
And so but it's a great way because you do notice it, right?
Oh yeah.
And if they're drinking that, you might want to drink that. If be like, okay, well, if they're driving that, I might want to drive that. So it's definitely a different way. It's almost like, okay, well, now I got this 2-hour commercial for me, instead of this 15-second spot or 30-second spot on
exactly.
TV. Because who really watches commercials anymore? Not a lot of people, right?
So
most of them, we all watch streaming now or whatever. So there's not a whole lot of commercial. So I think that's probably why we're seeing more and more of it in the movies to help that. It's, of course, it's probably a little bit more costly, but you're getting that whole time, especially if it's a good movie that people are watching and seeing. So I see that, and that's a great way to help do things. The thing that so my next thing is, okay, so you got this company now as CEO. What do you do? Because this is something I want to kind of get back to for people that are watching or listening to us. What do you look for when you're scouting talent? Like, okay, let's say that I want to be an actor, and I say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about, okay, so how do I get there? Because like as we were talking about this earlier, it's like it's hard to figure out how to get into the business, or it's hard to say, okay, well, what do I need to do? How do I get there? Because then it's like, well, how do I get found, or how does somebody just give us kind of like what you do to get your name out there. Yeah.
So, I have both perspectives. So I love casting because I cast for a couple things, and that's a lot of fun. And I can speak from like what we look for from the casting side and what I did before I even did that. And I think the most important thing is just doing it. Like, you have to want it, and there's so many resources available and things going on. A lot of people say like, oh, I'm in an area where that's not really a thing. And I'm like, it is a thing. Like, there's stuff everywhere.
Right.
And if you're saying that there's not, you're not being honest with yourself. You're like,
I would have never thought Sarasota, like they do a bunch of movies in Sarasota and they do them all the time.
yes, yeah. And
So,
Tampa too,
right.
you know, like it's, yes, some states have like tax incentives, which is a big thing with films for filming there. But like, there's short films, there's commercials, there's always something that you can do. So start with like, make a Facebook, go into those groups, you know, and start to see, like, send them an email, get some decent pictures. If you don't have a reel, record yourself doing a 30-second comedic and 30-second dramatic monologue, put it together or separately, send that in. You can start anywhere, you know, make your own content, write your own stuff. If you want to just learn, try to be like a PA on a film set, you know, a production assistant. Try to go and learn from other people and just make connections. Like, I got where I am right now by making connections. You are not going to move if you go to a film set, you do your 2 lines, and then you go home. Like, you're going to be there all day. You need to try to help where you can. Anyone that's worked with me will tell you that I not only just do my acting part, but they either get really annoyed with me or they love me because I am constantly trying to improve, you know, wherever I can. You know, if a cup was here for the first scene and someone moved it here with their hand, I am like, you need to stop. Like, I would never just yell cut because that's the director's job, but I'm like, hey, you need to fix that because
It's noticeable.
Yeah, continuity.
Right.
So I try to help where I can, and I think that if you're going to do that, you're bound to be successful. You just have to want to help. It has to be a passion. You have to be driven, and if you don't think you can do it, you're absolutely wrong. 100% wrong. You definitely, if I can do it, you literally can, I promise you, because it's all about personal growth, and like we were talking about earlier, growth happens when you do things that you're not qualified for. And if you have no experience as an actor, go get it.
Right.
Go do one thing, you know? If you talk about yourself with excitement and passion, people will believe in you, and that will give you the confidence to go and do the things that you want to do, you know?
And people also got to remember, you just don't automatically jump into a movie either, right? So,
No.
like, you know, it's like... Okay.
Very rarely.
So,
Yeah.
like, you know, I mean, you got to understand, like, the roles that you're going to get as you start aren't going to be great roles, right? I mean, you're not going to be, like, the star of the show or, you know, and that kind of thing. But that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And that's how you start, right? And then, like you said, you make that. I mean, we did something, was that 6 months ago or so?
Yeah.
So you and I were doing something, and you were doing makeup, and you're like you said, you do whatever it takes. You're there doing makeup and that kind of stuff. So, like, you know, and I learned a lot that day just by being around
being there.
being there.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things that you just take you soak it in. You just want to see what it's like and see what everybody's doing and kind of just ride with it all.
Definitely.
So it's like, you know, but that's the thing. But that's where it comes to, if you're passionate enough about it and you find your passion with it, if this is something you want to do, you'll stay there because it's your passion. You're just loving it and you're soaking it, right? And so
true.
And so, you know, really that's kind of what, you know, because the thing is if you're just showing up and you're thinking, okay, well, I just want to be on TV, or if I just want to be in a movie, or just do whatever just because, oh, this is something that looks cool.
Right.
You know, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
That is so incredibly true. Like, there's so many people that are actors and they show up to a set, and how they act and their behavior, you know, it comes across to other people too. And if you're there and you're just like not enjoying it, people see that and they know that and they acknowledge that. And it's going to be way less likely that you get future roles when you're not passionate about it, you know? Like, don't do it because you want to be on TV for 5 minutes. It's not that simple. Like, yeah, that'd be great for someone that's just doing it for fun, but for the people that are working for it, that are driven, have the passion, and this is their career, that's exactly what it is. Like, you make those really hard decisions, you put a lot of time into it, and it's not as glamorous as you would think.
No.
I spend sometimes a full day doing self-tapes. Like, I'll have 3 or 4 auditions. I have my partner like reading the lines, and he's back there like, oh my goodness, like it's all day, and I'm like, thank you. And it's tough. Like, it's a lot, and then you might not even get a call back. You send all this in, you take hours and hours and hours of your time, days of your time, and you might not even get a, hey, we got your submission, or, you know, great job. Like, you don't get that reassurance. So you need to be ready for really negative feedback, criticism, room for improvement. Like, you have to have that hard shell, and you have to be willing to learn, because if you're not, it's not going to work for you. Like, this is not the business for you. It's just not.
And that's the thing, is like, I think I think a lot of people, like, they think they know, right? And so, you know, they think they know how to do a certain, but they won't listen to, they don't want to. A lot of people can't understand, like, hey, this is what you need to improve on, or hey, this is, you know, and it's nothing against you, but this is, you need to, because like a lot of people, they don't take it well, the negativity or whatever. They think it's negative against them, and it's really not. It's just to help them grow. You know, you can see that in pretty much anything that you do in life. You know, whether it's one of my people who, you know, in the mortgage world or real estate or whatever it is. You know, because if you're not having success at it, and, you know, maybe it's, you need to fix something, or you need to work on this, right? Or whatever it is. But like, you got to take that feedback and be like, okay, well, let me understand it. And okay, well, because the thing is like, if you do take it and you understand it, who knows, the next time you really run with it, well, who knows, maybe that next time you get an audition, it's just for a lead role or something, because you took that advice and you took that criticism and you understood it and fixed it. Right. You know, because we're not perfect. Nobody knows, especially if you're just starting out. I mean, when I first started doing podcasts, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yeah. You know, I was like, I'm just here. And so, you know, but I took some feedback, and I took some other stuff on how to do things, and just like listened to the podcast and kind of figured my way out. Yeah. And so, you know, but you got to be willing to take that, right? You have to accept feedback. Like, if you think you're the best at anything, right? Like, huge names, Bill Gates, like Elon Musk, like, if they thought they were the very best, they wouldn't continue to be growing, right? They wouldn't have new ideas and stuff like that. Like, it just wouldn't happen. You need to be willing to take that and change for the better. And if you're not, then what's the point? You know, this isn't for you. You're your own barrier. You're capable of whatever you want. And like I was telling you earlier, if you see someone else doing something and they're doing it, why can't you do it? Yeah. You know, are you saying you're not capable? You weren't given the tools, the resources? We were talking about Oprah. Like, okay, Oprah can do it. She had nothing, you know. She had nothing. A really struggling, you know, she had a really hard time. And look at her, you know. And if you were sitting there looking at people like Oprah and then going, well, I could never do that, or she was privileged or something like that, that's not true. Right. It's just not true. Like, you can do it. You're just telling me you can't. Well, I think that's sometimes people don't know how to get out of their own way. Yeah. And so, like, you know, they make excuses. Yeah. And I did. And I did for a long time. I mean, I did it for a long time. And so, like, you know, well, I don't have time, or I'll put it in there. I'll add this then. And, you know, and then you just, I think, though, like, my breaking point, though, is, like, I realized, like, life's too short and to change everything. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. I got, you know, one of the biggest things that I think people have to get over, and I think a lot of times people make excuses because they're worried what somebody's going to say about them, or they think about them. You are so right. And so, like, they're worried about, you know, is my podcast. It's like, you know, well, what if they say something bad about it? And you got to get over that. Oh, yeah. You know, he'd be like, you know, or like when I wrote my book, he'd be like, your book sucks, you know? And, you know, and it's like, because, you know, it's not. I mean, it's okay written. It's not well written, but it's. I mean, I did it, and
Yeah.
you know what? I was like, you know
You
what? I
did
did
it.
it.
That's what's important.
Right? And I did it, and so and the same thing with this. It's like I did it. I mean, you got to get that out of your mindset that I don't care. I did it. You didn't. So whatever. If you don't like it, don't listen.
Definitely. There is a motivational speaker. I forget his name right now, and I wish I could remember it, but he gives this example, which I love. And he goes up to an audience member, right, who has like blonde hair, blue jeans, whatever. And he goes, I hate your purple hair. And he's like, if I said it to you, how would you feel? And the person's like, well, I don't have purple hair, so I don't really care, right? And he's like, exactly. If I told you that you looked ugly today or I hate your guts, how are you going to feel? He's like, well, I'd be really upset. Why? You know that you don't look like that today. You know that I don't hate your guts. It's the same thing as not having blue hair, right? Like it's, if you are confident and you know what you bring to the table and you know and know your ability, you know your worth, you know who you are as a person, it really doesn't matter what other people say to you. Like someone could go to you and say, I hate you so much, your podcast is trash and this is that. You know that's not true. You know what it took to get there and how hard you had to work. And that's how I feel. And that's what I live by. Like, I don't care what you say because I literally don't. Because I know at the end of the day who I am, my worth, what I bring to the table. And it took me a long time to get to that point. And that is true confidence.
Especially coming from the situation that you came from, right?
Yeah.
And the bullying in the school and that kind of stuff. They build that self-confidence.
Right.
That is tough.
It's tough.
And they overcome that and not worry because, you're what you've gone through and to come over that and look at you now.
Yeah.
And that's
thriving.
So it's like, but you do have to get to that mindset and you have to get over it and you can't worry about it. We were talking about like earlier where we were saying, there's so much negativity out there in the world. You got to get past that. You can't worry about what everybody else thinks. You can't worry about it. I go back to a thing where when I had my Facebook account, when I first started it, when I really started getting into the mortgage business, I didn't want to be friends with realtors on my Facebook account. Okay. Because I didn't want them to know my life. I didn't want to let them in. Because I didn't want them to say, well, you're sitting on the beach drinking a cocktail or whatever you're doing when you're not working on my deal. I was like, that's how I thought. So I didn't want to accept them into my life because that once you are on social media, it's share if you put it on there or you put something on there. Because I want to share that I was at the beach with my wife or whoever, or taking my dog out or whatever. But I was like, that's the mindset. Then I got to the point, I was like, I don't care anymore. I have to have a life too. Don't. So, it's like, you just it is what it is. But it actually was a relief. And the thing is I found it that people I work with found me more human than like this mortgage person.
Right.
They got to know who I was. They got to know what I do. They got to know what, and like it actually allowed you to be different and be yourself and that kind of thing. So and you just got to get over and stop worrying about what people think. And if they don't, then they weren't meant to be in your life anyway. So.
People are always going to assume and jump to conclusions. And it's really about just peeling back those layers. I don't want to say it's a natural form of human behavior, but we're all guilty of it at some point, But we are in control of what gets to us and what doesn't. And, you don't, for the example you just gave of sharing a picture on the beach, they don't even know when that was, Hey, I post stuff all the time from 2 months ago, right? I'll be like, oh, check out this photo. And people are like, oh, I'm so jealous you're there right now. I'm like, yeah, this was 2 months ago. It's not always what people think it is. Exactly. And we were talking about the situation at someone cutting you off in traffic. People get so mad and judgmental and you don't actually know what's going on in that car. Their pregnant wife, they're trying to get to the hospital. Just don't let that stuff bother you because if you're assuming something, you're wrong, right? You're the wrong one for making an assumption about something you don't actually know the answer to. And it's not worth the mental space to make assumptions of things that when you don't know what's actually happening, right? You could be filling that with positive thoughts and switching it and just putting it into the stuff you want to be doing. And that's what's important to me.
Yeah, you just got to drown out that stuff, because the thing, like we were saying, is like, that person in that car, right? You get upset with them and that could ruin your next 30 minutes to an hour.
Some people, their whole day.
Right. And well, imagine being, and this is what you got to understand. So like the thing is like, if, let's say that person just cut you off.
Yeah.
And you're waiting on this gig or this acting job, and you're waiting to hear back, or I'm waiting to hear back on a loan, or whatever it might be, right? And they call you and you're in that mood. Mm-hmm. You're going to be nasty on the phone.
Yeah, you can ruin it.
You ruin it. Like, you're big shot and there it's gone.
Yeah, and then imagine the next day you see like a news article about that same car and how they were like a heroic car for saving someone. You're like, wow, I just not only blew that job that I was on the phone with, but I was like really upset and I ruined a whole day of my life because of it.
Yep.
You just didn't know. It's not fair. Don't do it to yourself. Like, just don't. Like, just be more positive.
Right. It's hard. And I try to be that way. And I try to explain that to people because, again, life's too short. And before you know it, it's no big deal. Because in 2 days, you won't even remember that damn car.
Exactly.
And like,
literally.
And it's like, what? I don't even remember that now. And it's like, and you let that just affect your particular time.
Definitely.
And it's like, it's not worth it.
It's
like,
not.
And it's like so many people are going through so much worse than
everyone
us.
is.
So, so like that's the thing. And I tried to be like, it could always be worse.
Mm-hmm.
So stop with it and just realize what you have and get better at what you have.
Everyone's going through something, like everyone, and people go out of their way to be nasty. And like, we're here one time. I've lost like a dozen friends, right? I know how short life is. It's not worth it. Like, it's just not. And people will always go out of their way to hate on you and everything else. You're doing the things they wish that they had, the confidence and ability to do. And it's not. I really feel like we should be treating each other better. And when we are talking to people or someone's nasty to you, the old expression, kill them with kindness, is literally the best thing, because you don't know what happened to them that day. We all have bad days. We're all guilty of that frustration. Me still. Like, we all get snippy and can be nasty. But if someone approaches you with that energy, just relate to them because you've been there, and like, you don't have to give them the same energy back, right? We've all been there in a grocery store where someone's nasty, or like a parking lot, or whatever it may be online.
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with you.
When I see it at the grocery store, especially when you see it at the grocery store and they were nasty to the cashier.
Yeah.
And then after they leave, I make a joke about it with the cashier, and she smiles, or he smiles, or whoever, right? And it's just like, it'd be like, wow, that was kind of rude.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and then they light up, like, because you lighten the mood a little bit, and for them, and it gets rid of that, and because you just, again, let them go be them, and and don't take that part of it. But it's hard. It's hard to sit there and say that, because like so many people,
hard.
You're like, really, you're gonna act like that, and you try to keep your emotions in check, and it could be tough sometimes, because you just
tough.
you just want to let go sometimes, but what's the point? It's like, I'm never going to see this person again, or whatever, it's the same thing with that person that cut you off. You're never going to see them again, or whoever it was. So it's just like, you kind of need to realize that was just the one incident.
Exactly. And people that are like that are mean to the cashier, someone, they're going through something too. Like, they're human. It's not right, and it doesn't excuse how they're behaving by any means, but like, maybe they're waiting for that one person to make their day better, to give them faith again. You know what I mean? Like, they're checking out, like, pay for their groceries. You know what I mean? They were just nasty to you and cut you off. Pay for their groceries. I bet you money they're going to go home and they're never going to talk to someone like that again. No. It's crazy. Like, do something nice and wow them, because when you give the same energy back to someone that's like that, they win. They have that power. And not that it's ever about win or lose and who has power and who doesn't, but you don't want to stoop down to that level ever. So if you give them something that they're not expecting, right? Like, they just cussed you out in the grocery store. Let me pay for your groceries today. What are they going to do? Like, they're going to be not like that in the future.
Yeah, no, they're going to be a little humbled.
They're going to be a little humble. They'll be like, oh, okay. Like, and I've seen that happen. So that's just how it is, Kill people with kindness.
So let's get back to your filming. Yeah. As we went off on our little tangent.
Sorry.
So what's next? What's next in your career, and what's next going on, and what do you got coming up in the future?
Yeah, so a lot of really exciting things coming up. I just filmed for Pawn Stars, if you've seen that
I've
show.
seen it. Yeah.
They are on their Pawn Stars Do America. So I was on that show. That was really fun experience. They were
like
so
a customer
cool.
or
Yeah, so it's like they have a couple people that are fans of the show that come in, and then there's some that are paid actors. The show is real, you know,
Right.
and I'm signed paperworks and stuff, but the show is real, like definitely. Right. People bring in antiques and they look at it.
Right.
But it was really fun experience, so that was cool. Heartstopper is going to be filming in the fall. That's through Moonless Media. We are super excited about that. I'm in that as well, so that's exciting. Oh goodness, I just filmed for Crocodilus.
I saw that.
That's about a gator man. That was just a really cool, fun cast to be a part of. But yeah, there's so much coming up right now that I can't wait to do. I was hosting that Battle of the Bands TV show, so I hope that comes out soon. That was my first real hosting job, so I don't know how you do it because it was tough.
So tell us a little bit about that. So was it two bands going up against each other or what?
So it was 4 bands. I can't give away the winner or anything, but we had 4 bands on the show, and I had actually brought 2 of them. I was the producer for the show as well. And I was hosting, and I had my co-host there too, who was also the lead producer on it, Will Urbina. And it was really, really fun. We did like a competition style show. So think like The Voice, but for rock bands.
Okay.
So that was like the whole idea. And we filmed it in Orlando over 2 days. It was very, very crazy. It was a really big production and it was cool. So
they would play their music and then you guys kind of voted on it?
Yeah, there were 2 judges. We had the B-roll day and stuff just for like the action shots, and then we did some drone shots, and then we had the production day where we had judges sit in. They voted on the band, so we had like 2 knockout rounds, and then the winners of those rounds went against each other in the final. So this was like a concept TV series. Cool. So, it gets pitched, taken to network, and then possibly, done again, season 2, 3, 4. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So will that be actually on television, or just that's the start?
That's the goal. Yeah,
that's the goal.
It's filmed and in post-production, so it's ready to go. I hope to be writing a book soon, too. That's something that's been on my list that we were talking about. So in addition to film and Moonless Media and Infinity, I'm trying to get that done because that would be really cool. You've also inspired me to write a book. I'm like, if you can do it, I can do it. Like we were talking about.
But that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, because I was terrible at school. I mean, absolutely. I mean, not that I was... but that's pretty bad. My English in school, my grammar still sucks. And I get people yell at me all the time on Facebook because of my grammar and stuff like that. I'm like, whatever, dude. I don't care.
Goodbye.
So it's like, but the thing is that if I can do it and I struggle, because that's because I didn't graduate high school. I had to go to summer school. Basically, I had to go to college to get my degree. I missed my graduation because I sucked at English. I didn't have enough English credits. I'm like, me, the one that barely, I was actually in special needs English when I was in elementary school. So it was not special needs, it was learning disability, right? So back then they had that, and so they put you in a special class for English, and I had that for English, and so I struggled with it, and I'm a lot better than I was, but I struggled, and for somebody like me to write a book means anybody can write a book.
It's a huge accomplishment though. And that's what I mean. What it took to get there, and that's a huge deal. And it might be small to someone else. It's huge, and it's about what's important to you, not everyone else. And you're a best-selling author. That's huge, right? That's a big deal.
It was a big deal, and the thing was I just wanted to share my story, and we were talking about before is now. You learn a lot from when you write that first book, because the thing is I could have put more into it. Yeah. And now after that, I was like, why didn't I put that in there? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that?
We're our biggest critic, though, right?
So I'm like, all right, maybe it's time to write a second one, because it's that's the thing is that's my mentality. It's I could have put a lot more detail about me and who I am, because I kind of skipped over some stuff because I was worried about what people would say, and what I was worried about how people would react to it, right? And I didn't want to put that in there because I was, honestly, it was like, I guess I was not scared, but I was just like, it's pretty traumatic when I was a kid. And so like, I just didn't want to open up about it.
Yeah.
You know? And so like now I'm like, you know, well, if people saw more of what I really went through, I think people would understand more.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, for people who've gone through craziness, like, you know, I'm sure he doesn't listen to my podcast, but like my father actually sent me an email probably about 3 months ago, because on my website I put on there that I had a struggling childhood, and he had no idea what was going on because he wasn't really a part of my life.
Right.
And so like, you know, he was my dad that picked me up every other Saturday, kept me for 4 or 5 hours, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, so he's never really part of the life, and he didn't understand what I was going through. He's like, he told me I owed my mother an apology, and they gave me everything. I'm like, but you weren't there. You don't know what happened, and I never told you what happened.
It's also your perspective and your point of view and how you were feeling. So like, people can't take that experience away from
you know, and so like that's the thing. So like, you know, and I was just like, so that was kind of my whole problem, but like now looking at it, like putting into it, and then I've also grown a lot. So that book's almost 3 years old now. I've grown even more to where I see more now. Because before I was more about myself. Now I'm more about helping others.
Right.
I'm more about helping my team grow. I'm more about helping the community grow. I'm more about helping people with this get exposure. I want to give back more that way. And that, honestly, gives me more joy than anything.
It's so rewarding. It's like when you get to that point, it's like, wow, I've come so far because your priorities have completely changed. And like, I'm different than I was even a year ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's completely different. You become a different person.
And I've changed overnight, or not overnight, but over the last few years, and really just like look at things very differently now than I did a couple years ago. And I look at people and like, it is so awesome. Like when like one of my loan officers and they're just crushing it, and they're, you know, and the money that they're making has changed their lives.
Right.
Or, you know, or having somebody see the success that they're having and it's changed their life.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, and that's the thing that I love. And if I can be part of that and help them get there, that's better than money.
Absolutely.
That's better than money, because the thing is, you can have all the money in the world, you can't have that.
Right.
That's something special.
It is.
And so, you know, and that's the thing. If you're changing somebody's life, and you'll remember that. I've had tons of cars, I've had houses, I pretty much had it all, right? So
Okay, Chris. No,
but the thing is, like, you realize though that it's not about that. I don't remember all the cars.
Right.
I don't remember the houses. I remember things,
the moments and the
experiences.
impacts. Yeah. So that's how I am. I want to make an impact more than anything else. And although I'm really passionate about acting, that's what's important to me, is like, I love, and it's still kind of weird because, and I'm not trying to like say I'm this big person, because I'm not yet. I'm getting there. But like, when there's a person that comes to me and they want advice from me, it means so much, you know, because like, that's a huge deal for me. That's a win. I'm like, wow, I somehow was impressionable on this person to where they value what I have to say and they trust that I'm going to help them in the right direction. That means literally so much to me. And I feel like I'm inspiring and making an impact. And at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. So I want to build that platform for myself and through the company and every other way to be able to do that for people, especially ones that have been through a lot and feel like they can't get there.
That's awesome. That's what I love about it. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely.
This was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Awesome.
You can help support our podcast by checking out our Real Hustle gear. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, hats, and more. Let everyone know that you're a real hustler, willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. You can check us out right now on realhustle.com. And right now, we are offering all of our listeners 10% off when you use the promo code PODCAST at checkout. Once again, that is PODCAST to receive 10% off your entire order.